corruption has taken the center stage of discussions and research focus in the past 2 decades. And that is because of the effects on the victims, myself and you, the organizations, and the society. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is not only the victims of corruption that should be concerned about. We should also be concerned about the psychology of the perpetrators of corruption. We need to understand the cognitive, the emotive, and the behavioral aspects of the perpetrators of workplace corruption. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, permit me to run through the protocols because my task is huge and widespread. I recognize the Vice Chancellor of this university, the giant academic giant, Professor Olubenga Ebinisai, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Administration, the DVC Academics, the Registrar, the Librarian, and the University Board, the Deans of faculties, including the Dean of the Graduate School, my brother and friend, Professor Shola Olonfe. I recognize other deans. I recognize all of you in this hall and those in the virtual divide. The ICPC and other anti-corruption agencies, the police, the security agencies, the media, my friends in the ICT, I recognize you especially. My experience in life is shaped by my family background and the course that I read. How did I get to this level? First Homogamy Ventures, Nigeria Limited, was my first major contact. After my master's degree in 2001, the company won a contract to build signal houses for Nigerian Railway Corporation. We were in most parts of the states, northern states in Nigeria, so to say. We were in Bununu, we were in Tafa, we were in Limankatago in Bauchi State. We were in Safe in Zamfara State. We were in Abuja. We were in Bama. We were in Baga. We were in Maiduguri in Borno State. All these experiences expanded my depth, spread, and understanding of human behavior and the ability, sharpen my ability to manage difficult situations, terrain, and individuals. But it didn't go on forever. The contract slowed down and came to an end because of logistic reasons. But I came back home with a darker skin. I've not gotten over that until now. But then, I had a dream when the contract ended. I dreamt that my elder brother, Professor Francis Omoshe, who died in 1997, November 1997, came to our house in the village. And my mother asked him to intervene because I couldn't find a meaningful job at that point. He looked at me and said, "Brother, what is today's date?" I said, 39. Everybody laughed. He asked me again. I said, 37. I quickly corrected myself because I realized that there was no month with 39 or 37 days. I said 27. He said I would get a new job. And when I woke up, I discovered that I was already positioned to get a new job. One of my friends, the ones I normally run to when I have challenges, when there was no job, the University of Lagos, another part of Lagos, Muslim Adeyola, Olufemi Tejo, Shakurudin Odunuga were my comforts. We raised my home, we discussed ideas. Olufemi Tejo saw the advert, came across the advert of AAU in early part of 2003 and brought it to our house in Barika. Encouraged me to put in my application, which I did with the help of Mr. Sunday Rotimi Adebayo in the bursary department. He's now with you. I thank him profusely, sir. There were challenges along the way, but God came through for me. And today, I am a professor. During that time, there were issues here and there, but God stood firm. I thank the current Vice Chancellor and the former Vice Chancellor, Professor Adekunle, and Professor Adekunle Amos for putting together resources and processes to make me a professor of industrial and organizational psychology 2018, October 1st, 2018. Thank God Almighty for this opportunity to present the 32nd inaugural lecture of this university, the 8th in the Faculty of the Social Sciences, and the 4th to be presented by the lecturer in the Department of Pure and Applied Psychology. The road to the title. I know a lot of people were intrigued. Why did he decide to go in this direction? Why did he choose this? My experience. I came from a family full of steeds, full of fun, full of justice, and underscored by hard work. Late morning, my father would gather us together to discuss issues, argue about situations, internationally and locally. It is during this period that my father, Chief Cornelius Oba Akungba, taught us methodically how to root for justice, how to be concerned about others. In fact, he gave us an overdose of morality. My brothers are here to testify. His belief was that it is only followers that will complain about every situation. Leaders will think about solutions to problems. So it is that courage that has always pushed me to look for solutions to problems. So when I came across issue of corruption going through every corner of Nigeria, I decided to look at it from a different perspective. But this perspective was driven by the experience of one of our in-laws, Mr. Olaide Benjila. In one of the evening sessions, we recounted his experience in the court of law. And based on his experience, he advised us that as soon as the court clerk had read your charges and asked you, are you guilty or not guilty? He said, according to him, this position will carry the emotion of the judge, and he may hand down minimal punishment for you or acquit you totally. Because you have safety, bench stress. But there were arguments back and forth. The majority of the people supported this position, others went against it. My father was quiet also. That was unusual. But he cleared his throat later and said, well, suppose the individuals that were supposed to come to dealings and in dealings decided to go against the general and specific position of the individual concerned as regards justice. What would the person have done? Going by the fact that one cannot avenge an injustice all by oneself. Everybody was quiet. That fired my interest in law. And my search for why behavior of an individual is not situation specific, is situation specific rather, and not monolithic across situations. But unfortunately, I couldn't make it to law at the big University of Ondo, but psychology that way. So I got to the University of Ondo. When I was preparing for my PhD with Mr. Vice Chancellor, I came across these important 3 studies. The first one by Adekunle 2006 showed that individuals' personality characteristics like narcissism, hedonism, and conscientiousness made them amenable to corruption. What got me worried was that of conscientiousness. Yes, hedonism amasses wealth, sometimes uncontrollably and through all forms of means, which may be illegal. Narcissist individuals are concerned about respect that they get from others and attention, sometimes to the level that it is unprecedented. But for a conscientious person who is always proactive, works so hard, stand in the gap of the organization to come down with corruption, what we want. What must have happened? How could somebody who is hardworking, reliable, turn to be a corrupt person? Something must be wrong. The second study, Akoko, spoke about normative control. That is, the norm of the work environment can actually help regulate the corrupt behaviors of individuals. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, the norm can also push a honest person to be corrupt. If corruption is widespread in the workplace, if corruption is tolerated, so that may not be a good solution. The last one, Annan and Akoko, 2003, proposed that and tested equally that, yes, the same way we can create a norm for justice, a norm for honesty, we can also indirectly or directly create a norm that fires workplace corruption. I begin to search what would be in that individual. What would be that thing that will push an individual to go in the direction of corruption? So, my studies, sir, despite the fact that I've looked at other aspects of work behavior, advertisement, effectiveness, and so on and so forth, I decided to look at workplace corruption. Because others do not generate the level of emotiveness and concern and the negative effects that workplace corruption generates for me, you, the organization, and the society. What is workplace corruption? Misuse of position of influence and opportunities in the workplace for private gain. That is international definition. In that internationalizing the definition or concept of workplace corruption will not help us ultimately. But the focus of this lecture is not on dissecting the concept of workplace corruption. Rather, it's looking at the psychology of it, the psychology for workplace corruption, and the psychology against workplace corruption. So I have my own conceptualization. Use of position and work-related opportunities to acquire material and non-material workplace resources for self and others at the expense of the organization to settle scores and perceived unfair reward and punishment system. So this leads to the aim of workplace corruption, no matter how well the name be. What are the consequences? The socio-economic consequences. They are listed. If you look at the graphics, they speak for themselves. The roads are dilapidated. The infrastructures are gone. Individuals are not living fulfilled and healthy life. There is inequality, there is low economic growth, there is low human development index and well-being as a result of corruption. There is poverty. There is high level of corruption perception index. Nigeria currently ranks so high in corruption perception index. And low foreign direct investment, as well as low infrastructural development, low local investments. Nobody can trust anyone with his or her investments. Let's go to the GDP. What are the Western perspectives? The first group of perspectives view corruption through the eye of the management, the eye of the victims. Consequently, studies compare the level and the extent and the gravity of workplace corruption in society, in organizations, and so on and so forth. But that doesn't bring the fine-grained knowledge needed to curb workplace corruption. And that brings us to the second perspective, which is the micro, the individual engaged in workplace corruption. Let us study the psychology of the person. So my study generally has shown that workplace corruption is linked strongly with perceived injustice. When individuals feel unjustly treated in the administration of reward and punishment in the workplace, they tend to fire back with workplace corruption, with a lot of justifications. We'll get to that point. Based on my general and specific studies, I came up with this model, workplace reactivity model. It shows that individuals' personality characteristics and dispositions alone do not make the person corrupt. Rather, they mingle intricately and sometimes delicately with the situation in the workplace to propel the person to perceive and evaluate the justice condition. When the justice condition, the perception of the justice condition comes down with negative emotionality, that is, if you can accuse an individual for perpetrating justice against you, and the person is linked with the organization, you experience some negative emotion, because you tend to weigh what you would have gained if justice had been served against what you have lost. For example, you have worked so hard to gain promotion, and you were denied despite the fact that you are qualified. You tend to look at the social prestige that would have come with the position, the monetary reward, and so on. That will fire enough negative emotion that will make you to think of retaliation, either to bring back the hand of justice or to protest justice, to protest injustice. When that is strong enough, the person goes ahead to execute the plan, but it's not automatic. What happens? The past experiences, you have found yourself in a similar situation. You protested, you are looking for. Will you protest again? The answer is no. You look for another way of doing it. Will you leave the organization? Will you report the injustice and corruption? If it leads to negative consequences, you look for underground below the belt behavior. An individual may opt for workplace corruption or tolerate workplace corruption in the organization. Whatever course of action the person will take, it goes back to hit the perceived corruption environment and justice environment. So if the person leaves the organization, you can see it is a green line. It has positive impact on the corruption environment. But if it chooses corruption, it further worsens the situation. I decided to test this model through a series of studies. I categorized the factors into two broad categories. The first category focused on the non-psychological factors. The second one looked at psychological factors. For the non-psychological factors, quite a huge number of them. I couldn't cover all, but I looked at age, gender, marital status, job tenure, job level, educational level, ethnicity, and so on and so forth, as well as poverty and low salaries. For age and so on and so forth, my studies, some of them shows that as individuals' age increase, their level of corruption tends to come down. Other studies show that as the age increases, people tend to be more corrupt. Maybe because they have more responsibilities. Some of them might have become Olori Edibaba Bukata at that level. So they have a lot of financial responsibilities to deal with. And when they discover that the organization is not just, they look for under the strategy to people. For gender, yes, males tend to be more corrupt than females. But sometimes, females will take over in some of my studies. In some other studies, there is no relationship at all. And that goes on for the other factors. But what got me worried was the position of some scholars concerning poverty, low salary, and workplace corruption. They reported that poverty and low salary are what push and pull employees into corruption. That is not correct. If that were to be correct, those who have fat salaries, who are extremely rich, should not be corrupt. But the reverse is the case. In fact, some of them said they were corrupt because of me and you. For But the other divide, the psychological factors. My study shows that all the non-psychological factors need a huge push from the psychological factors. Principal among them is perceived injustice. No matter how honest the individual may look like, or the level of overdose of morality, like my father gave us, if you feel consistently unjustly treated. And remember, perception of justice or injustice may not equate to reality on ground. Individuals may perceive justice where there's injustice, and may also perceive injustice where there's justice. It depends on how information concerning justice dispensation are managed by the organization and its agents. Negative emotions will follow when there is perception of injustice, especially traced to loss of economic resources and social resources. The person comes down with what? Negative emotions. And the negative behavioral indicators, intention to either protest injustice or try to restore justice. But he may not be able to execute that because there are barriers, legal barriers, social barriers, moral barriers to what he wants to do. All individuals that are corrupt know that it is against the society, it is against morality, it is against religious dictates. But then they still go ahead to do it. How do they get over that? The realization of the consequences, the negative consequences of engaging in workplace corruption ignites some level of anxiety. Apprehension that what I'm about to engage in will lead to censure, social censure, legal censure, and moral censure. That anxiety, if it is strong enough, may discourage the person from engaging in workplace corruption. But then, those who crave rewards, who are overly concerned about getting rewarded for what they have done for the organization, for individuals, for the society, they tend to engage in workplace corruption, especially when they perceive that they have been unjustly treated, despite their efforts. But those who have low level of reward craving or reward crazy may not engage in workplace corruption despite perception of organizational injustice. But then, what about those who are satisfied with life? Myself and Ondo conducted a research among public sector organizations, employees of public sector organizations in Ondo State. And we discovered that those who are satisfied with life, those whose present condition seem to approximate the standard they set for themselves in life, tend to be less corrupt, which implies that even if you are extremely rich, and you set a standard that is extremely high, for example, I need to have 2 houses before the end of this year. And towards the end of this year, you have not laid the block. What happened? You have not met the standard you set for it. You won't be satisfied with life. It's a personal standard. And such individuals will look for a way to approximate what we have set for themselves. And that is where life satisfaction is also an important factor that will drive workplace corruption. Because you will be rich and not be satisfied with life. Those who are poor around you will be more satisfied with life. It depends on whether there is upward comparison or downward comparison. That is why poverty is more of a psychological factor than an economic factor. I'm sure Professor Longfellow may not agree with me, but that is the fact. That debate is for another day, bro. Moral intelligence. Those who have been overdosed with morality, no matter the level of injustice meted out to them, there are people like that. They have an overdose of morality. So, moral intelligence has an inverse relationship with workplace corruption. Then workplace neutralization, which is a very good factor. When individuals experience punishment anxiety as a result of what they want to engage in, which is not acceptable to the society and the organization, they need to neutralize that anxiety. They need to bring it down. How do they do that? They find justification for what they do. They have to justify what they are about to do. And how do they do that? They have not paid my salary for 6 months. How do they expect me to survive? I must survive. So they tend to look for ways to steal from the organization. And they engage in other forms of neutralization. The details are in the report. I want to find out. Now, how do workplace corruption become so perverse and strong and seem to penetrate every nook and cranny of our society? The reason is not far-fetched. Most people have become cyclical in their corrupt behavior. Once corrupt today, they become corrupt tomorrow. How does that process? How does it go? It starts with perceived corruption and injustice situation. You look at the situation around them in the organization. If it promotes injustice, if it promotes corruption, they perceive organizational injustice. Because it doesn't end with reward system. It also goes as far as punishment. When individuals who committed the same offense are punished differently and with different level of magnitude and spread, others will feel unjustly treated. And there's injustice, perception. And that leads to negative emotion, like I said, and the cycle goes on to pre-corruption, punishment, anxiety. And the person neutralizes that with workplace neutralization by looking for justification for what he wants to do. And then he finally engages in workplace corruption. After that, it doesn't end. He still feels apprehensive. Suppose the law catches up with me. What happens? How will I negotiate this? And he looks for a way, whether to be Adájọ́ mọ́ra, be ọlọ́pàá mọ́ra, be the investigative organizations mọ́ra. At the end of the day, if he's able to do that successfully, the post-punishment anxiety will come down, and will be able to assess whether the level of corruption he has perpetrated and the gain approximates what he suffered in terms of injustice. If he does not approximate it, he goes ahead with corruption and the cycle continues. Remember, it is his own perception. Even when he's over-rewarded, the over-rewarding from the corruption will also spur him to engage in more corruption, because corruption is self-rewarding. And he may also compare the gains of his own corruption with the gains of other individuals that are corrupt. Maybe 10,000 emoji and to 40 million. We all make that assertion every now and then. And that spurs people to continue the cycle. And once the cycle continues like that, corruption becomes a commonplace in the organization. And those who are not corrupt will suffer some consequences. Let us watch this video.
If your society looks like clear water, corruption is the red ink. Like red ink in water, corruption spreads. It starts small, barely noticeable, but soon it taints everything. It seeps into every corner, every crevice. No part remains untouched. Corruption weakens trust. It erodes justice. It destroys lives. But there's hope. Just as we see the red ink, we can recognize corruption. We can act. We can stop the spread. We can clean the water. Together, we can build a society free of corruption, one drop at a time. Let's make a change. Watch how corruption spreads, and let's vow to stop it.
Concepts: corruption tolerance, workplace corruption, and whistleblowing. They are interconnected. When we tolerate workplace corruption individually and collectively, people blow the whistle less. But those who don't tolerate corruption will also suffer some consequences. In one of my studies with Ajasin, we discovered that those who are intolerant of corruption suffer psychological distress. Myself, Akungba and Ajasin discovered that they also experience operational burnout. They become exhausted. They treat people with disdain because they are angry within them. They can't sleep well, and so on and so forth, because their level of morality negates what is going on. So, corruption tolerance reduces what? Whistleblowing. So, if we want people to blow the whistle, that means we must make sure that they don't tolerate corruption. The majority of you will think that by my lecture, I'm trying to push more people to become corrupt. Because the majority of us, individually and collectively, feel unjustly treated. You also feel unjustly treated on behalf of your people, your family, your clan, and so on and so forth. So you feel justified not to blow the whistle. But that is the direction of the solution. So let us look at whistleblowing. It also starts with perception of injustice and corruption in the workplace. When employees perceive that there is injustice and punishment in the world, they feel that some individuals that are supposed to come to dealings and dealings with justice are not doing what they are supposed to do. They feel inclined because they are negative, they have negative emotions, they feel aggrieved, they want to engage in whistleblower. But they have the feeling that what I'm about to engage in will bring more punishment to me, retaliation, backlash. How do I negotiate that? And that is because there is no legal and psychological protection, enough legal and psychological protection for whistleblowers. And that anxiety will be enough to kill the spirit of whistleblowing. But if he's able to negotiate that by telling himself that by my upbringing, by the feelings of people that I know that go through abject poverty, that go through undue punishment for their efforts, I need to go ahead and do it. And once that is done, you also feel that, well, these people, they want to exterminate me. They want to take care of my family in a negative way. How do I do that? Can the court protect me? Can the police protect me? Can the government protect me? Can the organization also protect me? If he feels that that is not possible, then the anxiety will rise again. But if he's able to negotiate that, then he will go ahead to continue the cycle and become anti-corruption activist. But how that information is managed, the moral environment and justice environment is managed, will affect every stage and step in the whistleblowing sector. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, I will not end this inaugural lecture without talking about the trend of workplace corruption in Nigeria. In 2024, United Nations Office on Drug and Crime reported that majority of highly educated individuals in the workplace engage in workplace corruption, which implies that the more educated they are, the more amenable to workplace corruption they will be. And that may be because their education will put them in a vantage position to control workplace resources and opportunities which they may arrogate to themselves and their cronies at the expense of the organization. But then, the second one says direct bribe in Nigeria has gone down from about 62% to 60%, in 2009 to 52% in 2003. A lot of people will be happy that corruption is going down in Nigeria, but that is not correct. People have decided to engage in direct ways of committing corruption. Some individuals will keep your file under the table for weeks, for months, and then you come around, you come around again, say office. They continue to frustrate you until you do the right thing. That is an indirect way of taking bribe. And this study shows that actually increased in 2003 than 2019. So people have become more sophisticated in engaging in workplace corruption. The policeman on the road, I hope there are no policemen, will tell you that, okay, we did for some since morning. It was money for sachet water. That's an indirect way of asking for it. Now, employees engaged in workplace corruption in trust for others. I've explained that before. People felt that my father had been wrong in the past. My father worked for the railway corporation for years. He retired, never got his benefits. Now, I have the opportunity to be in a position, let me acquire more wealth legally to take care of what? Of the shortfall that my father suffered. So everybody feels justified to do that. So corruption tolerance increases. Everybody in a position of authority is seen as a representative of the family, of the clan, of the ethnic group, of the church, of the mosque. As a result of that, they expect him beyond the normal to bring all the booties home. If he does that successfully, he's a good representative. And the people will go extra mile to protect him. They will carry placards, they will protest in support. It is only in Nigeria that people protest in support. The word protest normally comes with against, but in Nigeria, protest for. So we protest such individuals we believe is a good representative. For those who choose to be honest and refuse to go that way, after their tenure, we come back with heads raised down, and nobody will welcome them. No chieftaincy title, no recognition in the church, and no recognition in the mosque. So what are we driving at? So employees create artificial bottlenecks for corrupt retention. More employees are recruited into that gang. As they come into the organization, they are trained. This is how we do it. Public sector organizations also train politicians Oga Ajasin the so that the group can continue to enlarge. So anti-corruption moves are normally frustrated. I remember my experience, Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir. As the Dean of Student Affairs, myself and my team put together processes to automate student-related services in the university that has to do with clearance, transcript, voting, and administration of the halls of residence. So we came out with apps for e-voting, e-administration of hostels, e-clearance, and e-transcripts. We pushed the memo to the Vice Chancellor. Of course, the Vice Chancellor has to push that to different units and departments that are related to student services. The memo came back with the paper full of comments. We exhausted the front page, we turned the back page. We attached extra page. Still, there seemed to be no respite. My team became worried, we became frustrated. I said, guys, we cannot afford to back down at this point. And then put the final push. Mr. VC, sir, allow myself and my team and I to present this idea before the university manager. And we were granted that opportunity. And we presented, and our ideas were approved. Students became better off. Parents were also better off because the money they would have used to bribe was with them. The money they would have spent in hotels were with them. Nobody could extort money from them. Mr. Vice Chancellor, I'm able to say that then we were the first public university in Nigeria to do that successfully. And we did that for years. For those who were against that idea, did not relent. We were looking for ways to frustrate it. I am sure, sir, Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, that we will bring that idea down because I denied them the opportunity of extorting the students. So that is the extent to which people can go. But Mr. Vice Chancellor, we could prevent corruption. We could walk around injustice and make sure everybody is justly treated. Because now, the consequences is staring us cold and strong in the face. There's nobody, no honest hands that can hold even the roots of the corrupt persons honestly and sincerely. So we are all losers at the end of the game. For example, if in the news coverage we said so and so person embezzled so amount of money, and we now add a rider that this money, if properly used, is capable of building so number of hospitals, and by building that hospital, so number of deaths that we experience from child and mothers would have been prevented. A lot of people would think that, I think we need to curb corruption. Then the other aspect is the dilemma. Policemen, security agencies normally face the dilemma of coming open with the reports and the processes of their investigation, and at the same time concealing so that they don't indirectly make individuals sophisticated with corruption in order to gain public confidence. How do we do that? Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, permit me to set a scenario. a woman discovered that the children scoop food from the pot. Nobody was ready to own up. And then he asked them to come around one after the other. Fan your hand on the pressure in the pot. And the fingers of Zain, I hope there's no Zain in this hall, matched the impression in the pot. And Zain was punished. Zain thought to himself that it is because I used my hand, that was why my mother discovered. The next time Zain steals, what happens? Zain will use spoon. So it's becoming naturally sophisticated. When he uses spoon to scoop food, the mother will say, Zain stole before. So Zain has the capacity to steal again. So after punishment, what would you think Zain would do? It's because the spoon left an indelible mark in the pot. That was why my mother discovered. So next time he steals, what do you think he will do? He will shake the pot to erase the impression. And the mother will now ask the siblings, who did? And Brother Zain has been complaining that he has been, underfed in this house. So he will be the one. And Zain must have been punished again. What do you think will happen? Next time Zain is about to steal, he's going to go up his siblings so that nobody will report. He's going to also make his siblings feel unjustly treated. And that is what they do to most of us. So with that, they become what? Sophisticated in corruption. So policemen, when you bring out the process that you went through to discover that this was the criminal, others who are criminally inclined are also learning from the process, from the pitfall of the other ones. So that is how corruption becomes what? Sophisticated in the society. So we need to strike a balance about concealing information and gaining public confidence. That is the direction of my future research. Then we need to look at the process of workplace neutralization and moral disengagement. We need to look at the possibility of gene therapy. My interaction with Professor Motu some time back shows that there is a possibility of tampering with the gene. An individual who were dishonest, who became greedy. I'm talking of a sympathy research now, suddenly let go of everything that he has amassed for himself. So which means those who are corrupt, greedy and so on, once we tamper with the gene, they will become what? More honest and more just in their dealings. But I don't know whether research ethics will allow us to go in that direction. So we need a lot of collaborations with those in biochemistry and so on to get that done. So corruption flashpoints, we need to look at areas that are susceptible to workplace corruption so that we can nip it in the bud and then look at opportunities of bringing it down. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir. The conclusions from my lecture shows that there is psychology of workplace corruption, which look at the thinking, the emotion, the action, the processes an individual who is corrupt normally go through. Then there is psychology for workplace corruption. Before an individual engages in workplace corruption, he must utilize some psychological techniques to prepare himself and his psyche to engage in that. The details are in the book. Then lastly, there is psychology against workplace corruption. That brings me to the recommendations. What do we need to do? I divided the recommendations into two broad categories. In the first category, we need to break the process and discourage the cycle of workplace corruption using all the tactics: integrity, policy, operations, and processes, effective and efficient communication. Because communication is very, very key. How we communicate corruption issues and justice issues is very important. Then that may guide anti-corruption activism and so on. Ethical accountability training, ICT-based checks and balances, workplace diversity and inclusion management is also very, very key. Individuals who feel that its own group, whether subgroup, ethnic, religious, and so on, are been unjustly treated in the fire of the corruption. Then we need to initiate, enforce, and increase punishment anxiety. We need feedback mechanisms. Most organizations don't do that effectively. There should be feedback. If they are trying somebody for corruption, if they are punishing somebody for corruption, there should be feedback to the people and feedback from the people. So the feedback loop will help encourage ethical behavior and discourage ethical behavior. The clarity and fairness in rules, regulations, and processes, there should be opportunity for physical and factual means of developing moral competencies. Individuals can be moral models. The evaluation and improvement of structures, mechanisms for reward and punishment, and ethical programs. There should be work, integrity and accountability index across department and units. Then the other divide, we need to encourage whistleblowing. There should be physical, legal, and psychological protection for whistleblowers and their interests. In fact, the federal government and the National Assembly should pass the whistleblowers law as soon as possible and as a matter of urgency. There should be cautionary incentivization of whistleblowing so that it doesn't lead to cover effects. When there is no corruption, people may engage in whistleblowing because of the money that will come with whistleblowing, especially going by the policy of the federal government to reward whistleblowers. Make whistleblowing not easier in terms of channels, easy processes, and efficient automation. Whistleblowing knowledge and skills, culture of accountability, and shared responsibility. If we all agree that, for example, this sword belongs to all of us, and we discover that somebody is defacing it, all of us will be concerned and try to bring the person back to normal. So we need to take the burden of whistleblowing off the whistleblower. I know my friends in law, Professor Ondo will say, yes, whoever alleges must do what? Must do. Prof, let us try to limit that for whistleblowing. Whistleblowing support services and all these other ones that I've listed. We need to overdose people with morality in education, in family, in professional engagement, and we need to put together work integrity and accountability fellowship to reward honesty, anti-corruption activism.
Stop letting corruption stain our world, let's purify it together. Picture a glass of water tainted red with corruption. It's murky, dark and unfit for life, but watch closely. As clean water pours in, the red begins to fade, swirling away like whispers of a forgotten past. Each drop of purity dilutes the corruption, turning the water crystal clear. Just like that, our world can transform, from the shadows of deceit to the light of integrity. Every act of honesty, every stand for justice, is a drop of clean water. When we come together, we can flood out corruption, leaving a society that's transparent and pure. It starts with one drop, one act, and together we can create a ripple of change. Let's pour in hope, let's pour in honesty, and watch corruption wash away. Because we deserve a world where the water is always clear. Join us and be the change.
If I blow a whistle consistently and continuously, and we all do that, I'm sure nobody will have the guts and the opportunity to tell the judge that I am corrupt for a just cause. It is on this note that I want to enjoin all that we should do what? Please blow your whistle. Chancellor, sir. I am like a movie. A lot of people walk behind the scene, in front of the scene, beside the scene, to make me what I am today, to push me to this level. I have some of them listed in the book. Some will be on the screen. If you search the book and you search the screen and you cannot find your name, please search my heart. I thank God Almighty for this opportunity. He has been holding me for me, countlessly, from the past until this moment. And I'm sure He will be there for me in the future. My parents have been very, very wonderful. With the overdose of morality, the psychological support, and the economic support. I thank the university management led by the only academic giant, the giant academic giant of Nigeria, the Vice Chancellor, Professor Akungba, and his honorable wife, Chief Mrs. Ellen, members of management, deans of faculties, members of council, members of the faculty of the social management sciences, the department of psychology, all the committees I have shared and I have worked with. I thank all of you, from the royal fathers who are present here, my people from Hilltop CDA, Mr. Monuki Jankala, where I can see you, and the experts. Thanks so much. I thank the Akungba family led by the Ondo himself, Baba Bukata, Mr. Akiola, and Baba Ondo. My sister is here, Mrs. Comfort Patriotti. I thank members of my in-laws, my late father-in-law, Prince Okuma Odomiyo, was very wonderful. The wife is Mrs. Fumelaya Odomiyo. I thank you, Mama, for all the love. Hey, students, I thank you. You have been a great source of support. I thank everyone from the Department of Pure and Applied Psychology, starting from the HOD, I will mention the name now, to Professor Akungba, who stood strong for me when my salary was not paid for 6 months. He gave me some money to survive. Baba, I thank you very much. I thank all my colleagues in the faculty. My dean is here, Professor Adebayo Fatukasi, my brother, my friend, my in-law. I thank you, sir. I thank all the alumni groups in the Department of Pure and Applied Psychology and the students. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir. Permit me to introduce and thank my immediate family. I'd like to stand down from the podium to do that. Arami Ogunbamila, father before father. Arami Ogunbamila, mother before mother. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, I need a special permission to thank my wife. Dr. Mrs. Adekunle Ogunbamila. She is my HOD my capacity HOD, my friend, my sister, my confidant, my advisor, my prayer warrior. On my phone, thanks so much for being my strength and for taking good care of not only my humble self, but also this wonderful children. Which will ask me to do. I hope I have not disappointed you.